let's find the absolute and local maximum and minimum values of the function f of x is equal to 2 cosine of x plus sine squared x over the interval from 0 to pi. The first thing we need to do is find the critical numbers. Our endpoints are both critical numbers, because although we cannot have a local maximum at either of these values, we can have absolute maximums. Next up, we want to find our other critical numbers by first taking the derivative of our function. The derivative of 2 cosine of x is negative 2 sine of x, and the derivative of sine squared x will require us to use chain rule. So first we take care of that power, so we have 2 times sine of x now to the first power. Then we have to take the derivative of the inside function. The derivative of sine of x is cosine of x. Negative 2 sine of x plus 2 times sine of x times cosine of x is defined for all real numbers. But we still need to check where f prime of x is equal to 0. I notice that each of these terms has a 2 sine of x, so I'm going to factor out a negative 2 sine of x. So I have negative 2 sine of x times the quantity 1 minus cosine of x. Then I can use zero product property to solve each of these factors for x. So I have 0 is equal to negative 2 sine of x, and I have 0 is equal to 1 minus cosine of x. So this is dividing both sides by negative 2. 0 is equal to sine of x. So that means that x is equal to 0 or pi. There are more values, of course, where sine of x is equal to 0, but our interval is just from 0 to pi. So those are the 0 and pi are the only numbers over the interval from 0 to pi where sine of x is equal to 0. Next, we'll solve 0 is equal to 1 minus cosine of x for x. So we'll subtract. Well, it's probably easier to just add cosine of x to each side. So we're looking for values where the cosine of x is equal to 1. Over our interval, that's where x is equal to 0. This is kind of interesting because our critical numbers are just 0 and pi. We got the same numbers from our endpoints as we did from checking where our derivative is equal to 0 or undefined. Okay, so now that we have our critical numbers, we need to find our outputs for our function for each of those critical numbers. So we need to find f of 0 and f of pi. We need to make sure that we're careful that we're substituting back into our function, so that 2 cosine of x plus sine squared of x, not back into our derivative by accident. Okay, so f of 0 will be equal to 2 cosine of 0 plus sine squared 0. This will be equal to 2 times 1, so 2 plus 0 squared, which is 0. So f of 0 is 2. Then we need to find f of pi, which will be 2 cosine of pi plus sine squared pi, which is equal to negative 2 plus 0, which is equal to negative 2. Since 0 and pi are both endpoints, that means that we don't have any local extrema. However, we can still find our absolute maximum or absolute minimum. Our absolute maximum will be the higher number out of the two, so that's at f of 0 is equal to 2. And our absolute minimum will be the smaller number, which is that f of pi is equal to -2. And these are the extrema for our function over that interval.